so that you can see our topic for today is really going to be focusing on some instructional material scaffolds. And I already shared my thank yous, and I think my picture there just says it all.
Andrea,
We're kind of still dealing with some snow, and really appreciate everybody taking the time after school, after a break, just at this time of the year to be with us again today.
There's Ina. You can.
So just as a reminder, this is the overview of the series of sessions, and we are here in session 2, as I said, focusing on instructional materials scaffolds. This document is available for you in the Google folder if you want to refer to that at any time. So for today, our objectives are to define scaffolding and its critical role in supporting multilingual learners' language, literacy, and numeracy development. We are going to explore some examples of instructional material scaffolds to support multilingual learners at varying levels of language proficiency. And towards the end of the session, we'll have some time to apply some scaffolding strategies to plan for your own lessons in your own context. Again, just a reminder, here's our Padlet. So this is the same Padlet that we started during the last session. We're just going to be adding on to the Padlet with each session. So today's session is listed as session 2. And we have a PDF of the slides up there, also a direct link to the Google folder, so you can access everything through the Padlet. And then right next to that column, I have some additional scaffolding resources, some things that we'll be talking about and even looking at during the session today, and some just additional resources that you might want to take a look at. And then, of course, I have a space for our interim activity number 2, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Again, here's just an image of the folder, the Google folder. If you access that bit.ly link, this is what will come up. You'll just have to click into session number 2, and then all the resources will be right there. Here is our agenda for today. And as you can see on the agenda, we're going to start with an introduction and some reflection on the interim activity. But before we get into that, I do want to take just a minute and express my appreciation for the feedback that you all provided on the evaluation. I said that I read them, and I really did. So I did want to just point out some of the things that people appreciated, like having the discussion time with some colleagues, the availability of tools and resources, and then the access to the Padlet. But then some suggestions for improvements. And one that I heard loud and clear is that for the most part, people felt like they needed more time in the breakout rooms. And that there was also too much to read or process before discussion. And people wanted a little bit of a different configuration around the breakout room assignments. So for today, I have tried to kind of scale down the number of activities so that we can provide a little bit more time in each of the breakout room sessions. I've also structured the activities a little bit differently. One where you'll have time to review independently before you go into the breakout room, so providing a little bit more guidance on how you might structure that time. And then we also have a couple of breakout room opportunities today where you can self-select your breakout room. So let's jump into our first breakout room activity. And I want to give you an opportunity to discuss with others and share some of your takeaways from your interim activity. And again, I just want to really express my appreciation for everybody who really engaged with this activity. I read through all of the reflections as of about 2:30 this afternoon, all of the reflections that were up on the Padlet. And it was wonderful to see the level of thinking that you're doing, the use of data, the connections that you're making, and then even the disconnects that you're noticing between what students are doing in the classroom versus, what you might be interpreting in terms of access scores. So I did want to give you all an opportunity to talk a little bit with each other about what you noticed during that activity. And to start off, we are going to give you the opportunity for this breakout room to self-select your breakout room. And we would like you to do that based on the number of multilingual learners in your context. So you'll select a breakout room. If you are a low incidence school, so between 0 and 50 multilingual learners, middle incidence between 51 and 100, or high incidence over 100 multilingual learners. And then additionally, if you're not currently teaching and you completed an alternate activity, you can select a breakout room so that you can speak to others who completed the alternate activity. We are going to spend 7 minutes in this breakout discussion, and I'm going to leave it mostly open for you all to discuss your own reflections and takeaways. But if you find that you're not, exactly sure, or you don't really have, not really sure what you want to be talking about, you can refer to the questions that were part of this activity. So you can be thinking about what you learned about your multilingual learners that you didn't know before and how that might impact your instruction. You can also think about how the students access proficiency profiles compared to what you're observing them doing with language in the classroom, and what that might mean for your instruction. All right, I see people coming back in. I hope you had a great conversation in your breakout room. And I'd like to invite a couple of people to share if there was something from your discussion. I have a question here on the slide. What from your discussion supported or changed your thinking about supporting multilingual learners' language, literacy, or numeracy development? But if there's something else that came out of your conversation that you'd really like to share with us, then I welcome you to share that as well. And again, if you are comfortable sharing in the chat, or if you feel comfortable unmuting, I would say go right ahead and share.
In our group, we talked more about get to know each other and the population that we had and the students that we service, and how we gather the data, what type of assessments that we use. What do you do with those students who are coming in from either another district or another state? How do you assess them if they've missed the access window? Or, how do you manage a schedule? And, with so many students in one particular district traveling between schools, and that travel time eats up your day, how do you manage things and still meet the students' needs?
And were you a low, middle, or high incidence?
Low.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe we can have somebody share a takeaway who was in the middle incidence group.
I can. Our group kind of talked about the difference between how developmentally appropriate the writing portion of the test was for K through 4 feels fairly developmentally appropriate, and it feels similar to what they're doing in class, in their mainstream class and with me. But then kind of once you hit that 4th grade mark where it's all online, it looks very different than the writing that they're doing in class, and the supports that they have in their classroom to do the writing are just completely removed, if you will, for a lot of the testing.
Yeah, so it's definitely something that you want to be aware of and thinking about, especially, moving forward, knowing what that writing portion is going to look like. Great, thank you. And how about somebody from high incidence? That was a pretty big group. Anybody want to share any takeaways?
I'm so sorry, I'm joining late. Is it possible to hear the question? And I could speak to, I feel like I'm a high incidence, but I just needed to hear the question again.
We spent some time in breakout rooms talking about the interim activity. So people were sharing their takeaways from, learning more about their students and comparing access data with what they're noticing in the classroom. So if you have any takeaways around that. I
can speak on behalf of our group. People know, some of the members in our group noticed a decrease in the speaking, compared to like their access scores went down in speaking compared to how they might participate or engage in the classrooms. So there was a lot of thought around this year when delivering and giving access to maybe changing the groups up, making them smaller, or putting them into groups around putting them like that are maybe feeling more comfortable. So there was trying to like make those connections. People also brought up how I think as well as like the writing standards have like how difficult they are.
Yeah.
And as you move up in the upper grades, it gets harder, and so you can see how the writing scores can drop a little bit and work. So,
yep, great, thank you.
Thank you.
I see a couple of other comments also in the chat, noticing how the WIDA standards are very high. The WIDA test, maybe it's not at the most convenient time of the year. And yeah, also an additional comment about grouping speaking by proficiency level. And what about anybody who did the alternative activity? What were some takeaways from your conversation? You might be in roles where you're supporting other teachers or supporting others in your building to do this kind of work.
We all had different experiences because we all have different positions.
Yeah.
Unique, but it was just nice just to hear and maybe validate that we've all been in similar situations and how we responded to it and how we're learning and constantly growing as educators on how to support our students is mostly what we talked about.
Great. Good. All right. Well, thank you everybody for engaging in that initial activity. So let's jump into talking about scaffolding and its critical role in supporting multilingual learners. I honestly felt as I was reading through a lot of people's reflections on the Padlet that, a lot of people really do have a good understanding of scaffolding and are probably already doing some scaffolding. But to get us started, I have this little reflection activity. I'm going to ask you to drop into the chat the letter that matches the picture that you most connect with around your feelings about implementing scaffolding strategies. So if you're an A, you feel like you're just beginning. If you're a B, you feel like you're on your way, but it's a little curvy. If you're a C, you've got this. You're hitting your stride. It's all making sense and working for you. And D, you're just feeling a lot of roadblocks. So take just a minute and drop your letter into the chat. Okay, I see a lot of B's and C's. Yep, so people are there. Okay, I do see a D in there, so maybe this is new for some people. Great. Okay, lots of B's, so you're on your way. All right. Hopefully today, as we move through the session, there will be some additional scaffolds that you might think about using, or maybe some that you think about using in a different way. And just a reminder, this is the research slide that we looked at during the last session. And just a reminder here that, all of these best practices that we want to be implementing for our multilingual learners, there's scaffolding runs through them. So we need to make sure that we're scaffolding consistently and on a regular basis for our multilingual learners. So to start us off, I am going to share this video of a science lesson with you. And as you're watching the video, I want you to be thinking about your greatest struggle and how you felt during the lesson. So I'm going to have to stop this share and pull this up in a different screen.
In this simulation, you are attending a new elementary school. Pay attention to the lesson and be prepared to write down 5 things the teacher talked about.
You don't have to write down 5
Bom
things.
dia, estudantes. Ontem discutimos os ácidos e as bases. Hoje vamos aprender se algumas substâncias comuns da casa são ácidos ou bases. Vamos determinar o pH e outras características de cada substância, igual que descrever os resultados da nossa investigação. Antes de começar, vou recordá-los enquanto trabalhamos no laboratório. Vocês devem sempre usar seus óculos de proteção, luvas e aventais. Nunca podem tocar, cheirar, saborear ou misturar qualquer material, até eu os diga que possam. Cada grupo vai precisar dos seguintes materiais que estão especificados na sua folha de exercícios: 8 tiras de papel tornassol, amostras de água destilada, suco de limão, vinagre, bicarbonato de sódio e amônia, copos plásticos, óculos de proteção, avental e luvas. Como expliquei, vamos medir o pH de substâncias comuns da casa para determinar se são ácidos ou bases.
Okay, so as you were watching that video, what was your greatest struggle?
The language.
Yeah, sure, the language. How are you feeling? How did you feel during this lesson?
Lost.
Anybody else want to share any feelings that came up for you?
It was hard to stay focused.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know all the language. Like there were some words that I could pick out, but it was hard to stay focused.
Yeah, and I see a comment also in the chat that you had no idea what she was saying, and it made you realize that, that must be how some of our multilingual learners are feeling. Okay. Somebody knew some of the words, but it seemed to be going pretty fast. Okay. Somebody commented they were frustrated. So yeah, difficult. Let's take a look now at a second version of the video. And again, I want you to think about, how you're feeling during this lesson, and if there's anything that she does that supports you to understand. So let me get back here.
Até eu os diga que... Hoje vamos aprender se algumas substâncias comuns da casa são ácidos ou bases. Vamos determinar o pH e outras características de cada substância, igual que descrever os resultados da nossa investigação. Antes de começar, vou recordá-los. Enquanto trabalhamos no laboratório, vocês devem sempre usar os seus óculos de proteção, goggles, luvas, gloves e aventais, aprons. Nunca podem tocar, cheirar, saborear ou misturar qualquer material, até eu os diga que possam. Cada grupo vai precisar dos seguintes materiais que estão especificados na sua folha de exercícios.
Okay, so I think we got a good sense of what she is sharing this time. So what were you feeling during this lesson presentation? Or what supported you to understand?
I still didn't understand the language, but at least she had some visuals, and every once in a while she was using English, but it still kind of would have stressed me right out. I mean, that in college, I signed up for a Spanish class, a beginner's, and she came in speaking Spanish fluently, and I wanted to cry. So it makes you really think about it, because we have pre-K friends and they really don't have the language. So it does make me feel kind of bad, and it really puts things into perspective.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's really, really great what you're noticing is that, maybe you connected to a little bit, like she did a few gestures, she did have a little bit of English in there, but, if our students are sitting through this all day, it's still very hard. Anybody else want to share anything that supported them to understand or how they were feeling during the lesson? I see there were a couple of things dropped into the chat, the visuals, the word cards, the movements, the gestures, some connection to cognates.
She spoke really slowly and was always referencing either the vocab, cognate, or like the physical clothes that she was wearing. It almost seemed like she was purposely using cognates as well versus the first video.
The language and how she was speaking, I think, was very intentional.
I felt very behind. Like I would figure out just like, and then she'd move on. It wasn't about her being fast. It was about me feeling behind because I really wanted to try and understand what she was saying.
Yeah.
Because it sounded dangerous what she was explaining.
Right, exactly. So this was probably something that was really important for everybody to understand.
Yeah, and the goggles make me, and the gloves, but me as the student, I don't have goggles and no gloves. It makes me feel like something is going to happen, that she would put her goggles on and I don't have any. So what's going to happen to me?
Yeah. So now you're feeling worried. Right. So I think from what you've all been sharing, you've kind of already answered this last question about what this suggests about the role of scaffolds for multilingual learners in the classroom. Certainly we want them to be intentional. They're carefully selected so that they're supporting the students who are in the classroom, but also the activity. So since this was so important and that students should really be aware of the safety measures we need to take, we really want to make sure that students are understanding that. And that's something that we want to think about when we're planning for what scaffolds we might use during this part of the lesson. So now that we've had so much discussion already around scaffolds, how would you describe scaffolds? What are they? And we have an image here that is, one type of a scaffold.
Ways to access the content or hold supports towards the content.
Yeah.
Knowledge or skills.
So this picture in particular, as we're looking at a building and a scaffold that construction workers, painters, people who are working on this building might use, it's very much literally that. It's a support. So when we think about scaffolds for our multilingual learners, they are supports, but we also think of them as temporary supports. We know that, as students are developing language and content, that eventually we want to make sure that we have a plan for removing some of these scaffolds or adapting some of these scaffolds. We don't have a plan to keep just using these same scaffolds over and over again, throughout the year. We also think of the scaffolds as a way to support students so that they could perform something that they might not be able to do at this point in time without some kind of help. But as we're implementing these scaffolds, and this I'm really connecting with some of the conversation we had around the access test and what students are able to do in the classroom, is eventually we want students to be able to be doing these tasks or this type of work independently. So in addition to supporting them to get this task in front of them done, we also want to be thinking about what learning is happening through this scaffold that eventually they're going to be able to do this independently. And when we talk about planning for scaffolds, we talk about macro scaffolds. So these are the scaffolds that we look at students, we look at a lesson, we look at the lesson goals, and we can plan for those scaffolds. Sometimes we need to implement a little in the moment spontaneous scaffolds, and these are called micro scaffolds. So you're in the classroom, you're starting this lesson, maybe students are not engaging in the way that you want them to engage. So you might throw in a couple of additional, this is when we, pull up a visual on the smartboard that we, a word that we didn't think students might need. So there is some space to also put in some of those micro scaffolds. And as we were mentioning before, why do we use them with multilingual learners? Often through the use of scaffolds, we can provide what we know as comprehensible input. So by breaking things down into smaller tasks, by focusing on key components of a lesson, by pre-teaching some vocabulary, we make the lesson, the grade level materials accessible for multilingual learners. It's also an opportunity for students to hear strong English skills, and this could be either the language that the teacher is using. This could be through an interaction with another peer who has stronger English skills. And we also just want to keep in mind that we're going to need to differentiate the scaffolds. They are not one size fits all, just like our students are not one size fits all. So we are going to want to think about, again, the task that's in front of us, the students, what we know about our students. You've all done all this work to collect information about your students, and it's only going to help you really plan intentionally and strategically for the use of some of these scaffolds. So before we move on, I also just wanted to remind everybody, this is the research that we looked at in our first session around best practices or considerations, things we might want to keep in mind when we're thinking about instruction in literacy or numeracy for multilingual learners. So connecting to this idea of scaffolding, they will need scaffolded instruction. We want to make sure we're developing oral language skills, leveraging cultural and linguistic assets. We know in math, and a lot of people really picked up on this in the last session, is that, there is language in math, and the language itself could be the barrier, not necessarily the math skills that students need to be working on. So these are just a couple of reminders around the research that we looked at. And I want you just to think about what from this discussion about scaffolding and its importance for multilingual learners really resonated with you.
I think it's to try and find that balance, not to over support so they depend on you, but yet to find that sweet spot for them to be successful, and then know that marker is going to change as they become more proficient with their English language.
Yeah, great, thanks. And I see a couple of things coming into the chat about the reminder of the gradual release, and also that there's no one size fits all. Yeah, great.
Right. And our MLs may not have the background knowledge of how a word should be pronounced, let alone what the meaning is, to make it contextually understood. Because that's my experience. When I don't know what it means, I can't even read the word sometimes because I don't have that. I had a kid read the word patrolling and chunking it like pat, rolling. So he did it correctly, but it doesn't mean that, it's patrolling. So that's the thing with MLs, and that's what I experienced a long time ago. So
yeah, so that's great that you can also bring your own personal experience into your teaching. Anything, any connections you can make between scaffolding specifically and literacy and numeracy instruction for multilingual learners? Any specific connections? So I see Melissa's comments here that students really need to internalize using and then also gradually releasing the scaffolds, not just have them be educator driven. And again, I think that goes back to what we were talking about before about you really knowing your multilingual learners, really observing what they're doing and how they're engaging with the scaffolds, and then, thinking about what might be a next step. What can be removed? How might I shift or adjust these scaffolds? Yep, and I see Katie, a little reflection that you need to do some more planned scaffolding. Great.
I have found that sometimes kids will gain and you could do away with one of your techniques, but then later they need that support again. Like it's like you're starting all over from base one.
So I think there are a lot of pieces to consider when we're thinking about scaffolding, and when we talk about pulling away scaffolds, I do think that there might be some times where we might be rolling something back in because maybe it's the topic. Maybe when we talk about this new topic, we do need to go back to, a scaffold that we had used before. So I feel like when we talk about this gradual release, sometimes people have this idea that like, oh, in the beginning of the year, we're going to do A, B, C, and D, and then we're going to get rid of those and we're going to move on to the other ones, or students just won't need them anymore. But I think, and this connects to a lot of comments that people are making, is that, we really need to be good observers around how students are using them, if they're using them, to think about the adjustments that we might make. It needs to be really student-centered and not just, a teacher deciding, oh, the student is a level 2, they might need this particular scaffold. Okay, let's move into looking at some examples of some instructional materials, scaffolds. So we like to break scaffolds up into 3 categories: instructional materials, instructional practices, and instructional groupings. But for today, we're only going to be focusing on these instructional materials. And as you can see, this is the audio, the visual, the hands-on resources that we often provide to multilingual learners to help them to provide support in their classrooms. So this is a tool that is available on the Padlet, categories of scaffolds, and it does give examples for each of these categories. Like I said, today we're going to really focus on that first one. And when we talk about instructional material scaffolds, here are some examples. As you read through the list, I'm sure many of these will be very familiar to you, and you've probably used many of them. But let's take a look at this first example, which is an amplified text. So when we talk about amplifying, we want to encourage teachers to build onto a text that students might be looking at rather than simplifying it. So when we amplify instead of simplify, this is what gives students access to grade level texts. And it also enables them to learn about the language and text features that provide context to the text. As I started reading this slide, I was thinking about a connection that I made earlier today with something that somebody had put in their reflection on the Padlet. Actually, a couple of people had made this connection on the Padlet from their interim activity that, it wasn't just enough to teach students words. What they really needed was more sentence structure. Like they could know meanings of words, but it wasn't necessarily supporting them. And I think this amplified text example really shows that. Like students can really know all the words, but the way words are put into sentences can also really impact the meaning and understanding. So we want to make sure that we're not taking away from that sentence structure. So here's an example. Here's the original text. Because he had to work at night to support his family, Paco often fell asleep in class. Now, some teachers with best intentions might decide to simplify the sentence, say this is complex, this might be too much. But if I simplify this, this is what we get. Paco had to make money for his family. Paco worked at night. He often went to sleep in class. What is kind of missing from that simplified text? What do you notice about the two texts? Anything about the messaging?
Why he went to sleep?
Yeah.
Okay.
He wanted to help his family, and that's the main thing. Okay.
Right. So we're missing that in the second one. Really, we're missing, and Katie has, commented on this in the chat, that we're missing that cause and effect, and that cause and effect language. And this is the type of language that students are going to see in grade level text. So when we simplify, they're missing out in having access to that more complex sentence structure.
Right. Instead of using the because at the beginning, doesn't a sentence always start with a subject, predicate, and then the object, which is he has to support his family. It's not because he played games all night.
Well, I think there are different ways that we can show cause and effect, and students might see a sentence structure like this. And as many people are pointing out, we're kind of losing that if we simplify it and just write it in simple sentences. So let's take another look at another example. So here is a text that actually came from Wikipedia. So if we wanted to support multilingual learners in being able to access this text, what are some things that we might do to amplify this? And as you're dropping ideas into the chat, I'm just going to go and click through and show you this amplified text here. Okay, so the message is the same. Students are getting the same information, but probably one of the things that you noticed immediately is that this information is chunked. Okay, it has sort of headings. There's some bolding to really point out, what they're talking about in each of these sections. They've kind of organized those dates a little bit more so that kind of really stands out. But really, and in this case, this was a digital text. So there was an opportunity also for students to click on this little audio thing here so that they could hear. But I think some of our students just looking at this first text might just get a little overwhelmed or concerned and, maybe not feel really ready to tackle that text. But in the second one, we have a little bit of page break. It makes it a little bit more reader friendly. There's some images in there. And it might be a little bit more accessible. And certainly if we're supporting students to read through it, we could work with them through each of these chunks of text. So for implementing this strategy for amplifying a text, here are some suggestions that you can do when you look at a text. You can chunk it. You can add some guiding questions or some headings. There might be some places where it's easiest just to embed a definition or some cognates or even some translations. And again, this depends on your students and what you're trying to do with the text. There might be some place for visuals. And if you have the option, you might be able to provide an audio version. So I'm going to give you a quick opportunity to try out amplifying a text. And I want us to try it out with this math text because we have talked quite a bit around how language is really present in math, and we certainly experience a lot of word problems. So I'm going to give you 8 minutes to work in your breakout room. You are going to access document 3 in your Google folder and find the slide that matches your breakout room number. So when you go into your breakout room, make sure you pay attention to your breakout room number. Your slide is going to look like the one that's here on the screen. And I want you to read through this math problem and then complete the table on the slide, just asking questions around how you might amplify it, if there are any supports that you might want, and thinking about whether or not all multilingual learners would benefit from the same engineered text. So are there any questions before we jump into breakout rooms? All right, and I think this one, Jasmine, are we just doing random breakouts? Yep, okay, great. So let's go ahead and open up those, and we will spend 8 minutes on this activity. So anybody want to share any takeaways, reflections from the activity? When might you use a strategy like this? One thing I find often, I share this strategy and people get very excited about it because they do make that connection that, we don't just want to simplify those sentences. We want students to have this access, but then they get a little overwhelmed thinking, gosh, can I really do this all the time? So I think it's really important to think about when you might use this particular strategy. So I'm wondering if anybody has any thoughts about that.
I think Bianca has our notes, so.
Okay.
Thanks for volunteering me.
Well, let's put her on the
spot. So we thought about, those key tenets of, I think, providing scaffolds, which is really using what we know about students to launch into the math problem that we were given. So we had a math problem about having a party and having equal amounts of drinks for everyone who's going to attend. So we thought about asking students to build some background knowledge or hear some funds of knowledge about their experiences with going to a party, and then replacing some of those key terms with cognates. While kids get an opportunity to talk about that and build some context around the problem. And then we talked about then building access towards understanding the problem through drawings, diagrams, acting it out, physically putting the cups on tables and having kids putting objects within those, doing a 3 reads routine to help give more support. And then we thought the last question, would all MLs benefit from the same engineered text? We said, no, this is where you need to know your students and what appropriate scaffolds that they would require. And Ina talked about using some key questions, like where could we start to access this, just to get some formative information, but then building self-efficacy within students to recognize what scaffolds do I need, and then getting those for themselves in order to access as well. That's, yeah. Did I miss anything, group?
Wow, what a note taker.
Yeah. We need to make sure that we're not just giving them the information. We need to figure out how their mind works. What do they know about math already? Because some of them are already mathematically much advanced maybe, but the words might stump them.
Right.
So numbers might, some of them might come up with, okay, well, it's 6 times 4 is 24. I mean, that's the shortcut, but some kids may not understand that. So there are different needs there.
Yes. And I think what we find often with math problems is that sometimes there's extraneous information in there. They might not need all of that information to figure out the math. So, that could also come into play when you're thinking about how to best scaffold for different learners. And I have this question on here just about collaborating with colleagues. I know some people are coming to the session as multilingual teachers, some people maybe content teachers, maybe some people not even in the classroom. But certainly if this is a practice that you want to implement across your school, it's something that you can think about how you might collaborate around this. Like, are there certain texts in social studies, for example, that we're going to really focus on amplifying? Are there certain texts in ELA? Are there certain ways that we want to be amplifying some of these texts? I also just want to draw attention, when I popped into one breakout room, there was some discussion about AI, and there is a lot of work happening now. There certainly is the capability to kind of drop into AI saying, I'd like to amplify this text for beginning multilingual learners. What are your suggestions? And I just want to offer just a tiny word of caution that, we always want to be reviewing what AI provides for us and make sure that it does match the needs that, our students have, and also that we're not losing those aspects of language that we want to make sure that we're continuing, to elevate with students. So just my little AI pitch. And I will say that I am not like hugely experienced, so I do love hearing about how teachers are using AI, but I do always kind of have that little bit of caution back there.
Mindy,
yes.
In ours, it said something, and I don't know if that was something that we should have picked up on or not, but it said that the student was inside while the rest of the kids were out at recess.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that it's like, really, is that the time that she should be doing that, or should she be out with her friends? Or I don't know. That was the only thing I was thinking of, like, after the fact.
So I think that could have been something that, like, that was a special thing for her that she was helping to the teacher to set up. But I also think in terms of like students reading that as a math problem, that to me would have been some extraneous information that they shouldn't have to worry about. But I can imagine students getting kind of hung up on that, being like, oh my gosh, why is she inside? Everybody else is at recess. So again, that may have been a teaching point where we could say, is this a piece of information we really need to solve the math problem? So
we talked in our group, though, about the idea of having the rich text experience, and
mm-hmm.
and asking, even though they're supposed to be solving a math problem, understanding the nuances of the text as well as, literacy going across subject lines and that sort of thing. So we talked a little bit about the danger of I use the term number plucker, where kids just want to go through a paragraph and get the numbers out and just do something with them without mm-hmm. understanding the context.
Yeah.
And so some of that extraneous information may be part of helping kids contextualize.
Yeah, that's a great point. Mm-hmm. I love that term, number plucker. I might need to use that. But I do think, again, that is a teachable moment there around, like, just because we see numbers, is this necessarily what we're going to need to solve this particular problem? And to your point about the language, is they really need to understand what's happening in the problem to figure out what they do need and what they don't need. So they really, kind of want to envision what's happening through this word story. Really, it's a story, right? This little story that is asking them to solve a math problem. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. So the second scaffold that I want to talk about a little bit is sentence frames and stems and paragraph frames. And I feel that often people are very familiar with sentence frames and sentence stems. But what people maybe don't always think about is that we can use these sentence stems or frames to focus on content concepts, but it can also really be teaching students about language. So depending on what we provide or what we're asking students to provide, that's kind of where the learning is. So are we teaching them a particular sentence structure, or are we, teaching them to fill in particular parts, like in this case, connected to a story that they read in the first example anyway. The main character is blank. They're obviously trying to think about particular character traits. And then I know this because in the text it says, and that's kind of a sentence structure that we often want to teach students, like how they're sharing their evidence. So just something to be thinking about. And then in terms of math, also, we often encourage students to explain their thinking. I used blank to solve this problem, and I know I needed that particular operation because, or I know I needed to use this operation because. Like, how do we know that it's multiplication? How do we know that it's addition? It's not just, pulling out the numbers and trying a couple of things. So again, even with these sentence frames and stems, and I've listed up here paragraph frames, like, if students move on and we're expecting more writing from them, we can also provide a paragraph frame. But we might also, even depending on proficiency levels, include additional scaffolds like word banks or some visuals or some of those types of additional scaffolds. So when we're thinking about sentence frames, here are a couple of planning questions that you might want to use so that you are thinking intentionally about your students and you're thinking intentionally about the task in front of them. We want to think about the language proficiency of the students, like how much do we need to provide and how much might we expect students to be providing based on language proficiency. We might also have some particular academic language that we want them to use. So we want to make sure that the frames or the stems are set up in such a way that that language is going to fit into the response. And then again, how is the stem or frame going to support them in being able to produce that language? So yes, we want them to develop content, we want them to find evidence, but there is a way, orally or in writing, that we want them to be able to produce that response. So we want to make sure that the stem or the frame is helping them to produce that particular language. So we do have, as a tool, and this is also on the Padlet, you may have seen some sentence stems like these around discussion starters. And in order to really support students in discussions, we often provide some of these sentence stems or frames that we want them to become familiar with. And that supports them in kind of knowing, or at least providing some options of what they might say next. So it kind of supports this discussion building, but it also gives them a little bit of language that they can become familiar with. You can access that on the Padlet. So rather than have me talk through all of these different scaffolding ideas, I've put together for you a virtual gallery of scaffolds. And here is where I'm going to give you a little bit of guidance around how you might use your time. The first part of this gallery walk, you're going to do independently. So I'm going to suggest that you spend about 7 minutes, if you need that full 7 minutes, to access the virtual gallery walk. And I'll show you what that looks like in just a minute. And you're going to review the information about these additional instructional material scaffolds. So there's images on there, and then there's a little bit of a description. After you've done your own review of these scaffolds, you're going to again meet in a breakout room for 10 minutes. And then you can talk with the other members in your breakout room about your takeaways from the virtual gallery walk, anything that was new to you, any ideas that you might have about implementing some of these specific scaffolds. And then I'm going to ask you to select a reporter so that we're prepared to have somebody share out with the whole group. So before we open up those breakout rooms, I do just want to quickly just show you what this looks like. So if we go into the instructional materials scaffolding gallery walk, this first page is just the directions, but if you click on over here where it says materials scaffolds, then you'll be able to scroll through and take a look at and read about these different scaffolds. So I'm going to suggest, so as I said, I suggested about 7 minutes to look through these. I'm going to suggest that people turn off their cameras while they're looking at these scaffolds. And then when you're ready to come back and move on to part 2, if you could turn on your cameras, that would be a good signal for me. If people are ready before the 7 minutes, we can hop into the breakout rooms. Okay, I heard some great conversations in the breakout rooms, and I would like to invite you to share a scaffold that resonated with you. And in good ML teacher support fashion, I have a couple of sentence starters that you can use. Just choose one if you like. So anybody who wants to share anything.
I'll share one scaffold that stood out to me was the versatility of the anchor chart, that it can be a multimodal tool for either a reference tool that you could teach your kids, or it could be, a live document that you build, like if you're answering a guiding question and throughout a unit, you're building understanding and contents toward that guiding question or purpose of the unit, or even a shared co-created tool for, if they're going to write a paragraph and they have to determine main idea and key ideas, creating that anchor chart together. And then I was going to try using an anchor chart with a fact fluency system that I was going to launch with 3rd and 4th, that would have the name of the tool, like a diagram, or base 10, the one in the gallery walk, but then provide the cognates, the visual, and then a pocket with the actual tool in there, that they could get and use during math to build that self-efficacy of just-in-time scaffolds.
Yeah.
Just in case. Yeah.
Yeah, great. So students making the decision, do I need this scaffold? That's great. Love it. Maybe one more person want to share something, a scaffold that really resonated with you?
I just put it in the chat, but I'll share.
Okay.
I said one scaffold that really stood out to me was the hula hoop one for the Venn diagram for comparing and contrasting. And then I kind of went a step further about how that's like a very physical movement, and I use a lot of like whole body movements, which is also like a very age appropriate scaffold, but it wasn't one that was like on the list.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for sharing. Okay, so we are going to move into kind of our wrap up. I can't believe that it's 4:37 already, but I do want to share with you a couple of additional tools that might be helpful to you as you think about scaffolding for your lessons. So we share these 6 steps for scaffolding for multilingual learners, but the piece that we're really going to be focusing on is thinking about the scaffolds that you might provide in a particular lesson. So, typically you'd think about the language demands or your goals for the lesson, and then you want to think about which scaffolds are going to make the most sense. But we also often think about scaffolds that for students at different levels of language proficiency, like which ones are absolutely critical, which ones do they definitely need. And then you can see through this tool, as students move into the intermediate level, some of them are not necessarily critical, they might be necessary, and that is a decision that you might have to make based on the task and what you know about your students. And then as students move into the advanced level, even fewer are considered critical, but there might be some that are necessary. People really often appreciate looking at a tool like this because it's a little comforting to know that I feel like I'm providing all of these scaffolds for my beginning English language learners. And, yes, often in the beginning, they may need a lot of those scaffolds. But as they're progressing in their language development, we want to be aware that there are some that they may still need, but we also want to feel comfortable, pulling some back and taking a few away. So this might be a tool that might help you think about knowing those proficiency levels of your students, where you might start thinking about which scaffolds make the most sense. I did have another activity planned, but given the time, I'm going to skip that. But I did just want to point out that there is a document in the Google folder that kind of a teacher kind of goes through, it kind of describes a teacher's thought process in planning scaffolds. So if that's something that might be helpful for you to take a look at once the session is over, or even, as we spend about 10 more minutes on your own planning, if you want to take a look at that, you're certainly welcome to do that. Or if you have any questions about that, you can certainly ask those. Sort of thinking about what we want to do moving ahead, I want you to think about your own lesson planning and thinking about which scaffolds you might want to implement based on your students, the tasks, the language that students are going to need to engage in whatever task you're asking them to do. Just a reminder that we do have some resources on the Padlet. We have the WIDA proficiency level descriptors. You have the documents around your academic and non-academic information about your multilingual learners. And we can take about 10 minutes now if you want to start thinking through this first part of your planning. So this is a scaffolding planning template, and I'm going to ask you to plan for scaffolds. And then as part of the interim activity, I want you to try them out and see how they go, and notice how students are engaging, the language that they're using. So if you'd like to spend about 10 minutes now thinking about the lesson that you're gonna do this for, some of the activities, just reviewing some of the materials, we're gonna take about 10 minutes for that, and then we'll come back together. So again, this is an opportunity for you to either work independently, if you have some colleagues that you're comfortable working with, maybe some people from your school, you want to work together. You can also self-select a breakout room. We're also going to open up a breakout room that I don't remember what we're calling it, maybe questions for Mindy or something like that. So if people have questions and you don't want to kind of shout them out to the whole group, and maybe we want to meet in a breakout room and have some of those conversations, I'll be in that breakout room. So we are going to plan, it's 4:42. I'm going to have us come back in exactly 10 minutes at 4:52. So any questions about what we're doing now? All right. This planning document is document 6 in the Google folder, and you will have to make a copy of it. So either download it or make a copy.
I had.
So maybe just to wrap up, anybody want to share, and you can unmute, drop in the chat, anything that shifted in your thinking today about supporting multilingual learners, or one specific action you feel ready to try after today's session. And I do feel like we heard a little bit about that already today. So anything anybody wants to share?
For me, I think a shift was that it really, not only knowing the students that I'm in front of in what scaffolds I choose, but having not a plethora, but like many of the scaffolds just increases access for all kids. And so when I would think like, oh, I used visuals, oh, I used, a vocab protocol, like I checked a couple of boxes, it's more like more is better. In terms of the gesturing, the cognates, the slowing down of speech, to really, and through the video experience, that was made very clear to me.
Great. And I see a couple people in the chat mentioning intentionality, and we love to see that. We love to to recognize that people are being very intentional about the scaffold. It's not just going down a chart and being like, hey, I'll try this one today and let's see what happens. We want to be very intentional about it. So I love seeing that. A couple people really excited about amplifying the text, working with content teachers. Love to see that too. We're always encouraging that collaboration. So great. And if you have additional ideas, feel free to keep dropping those in
the final section of this webinar. We will ask you.
Sorry about that. And just to wrap up, I do want to share a little bit about the interim activity. So again, we'll be using that scaffolding template that is document 6 in your Google folder. And it's listed as document 2 and 6 here because these instructions are listed on the agenda. So I want you to plan the lesson between now and our next meeting, and that's the next meeting with me. I also just want to reiterate that, the purpose of the interim activity is for you to be able to try out a couple of these things. This is not graded. This is not your hours in this session are not like reflected in in any way connected to what you're sharing on the Padlet. We really just want to make what we're sharing here actionable. And it's great if you try something out and you realize it didn't work, and it's great if you try something out and you realize, wow, this really did work and I want to do it again. So I'm really hoping that what we're providing in this session are tools and ideas for you that you can implement in your classroom. So I do also just want to point out that I recognize that there are people here that are not in teaching positions. So I did suggest a couple of alternative activity options for this interim activity. You only need to select one. If you're an administrator and you can observe a classroom, that would be great. And, jot down some observations around the scaffolding. Maybe you would have some suggestions based on some of the scaffolds that you learned about today. Or you could be thinking about these questions. What do I need to do in my role to be encouraging more scaffolding or more intentional scaffolding? So I would say just choose one of these and then, just post that reflection or that piece to the Padlet.